Thank you so much, Joseph. If I were to draw some parallels, I spoke about some of the cognitive errors for those who were there for my presentation earlier. Fortune telling is one of the cognitive errors which Joseph spoke about, wherein people are trying to tell what the fortune would be like given the anxiety that we have around us, right? And that is where we start to think of the worst. The other things that Harini spoke about, how do we emotionally engage people while they are even working from home? And then Divya very rightly pointed out right now that emotional labeling, and that is what I think even Harini was speaking about, that how do we make them label the emotions that they are feeling, when she said that, we are not asking you to let go of your mother tongue. Or when Joseph spoke about that, or Harini spoke about that, instead of using the word problem statement, say need. So when you articulate things, or when you say it's a problem or it's an obstacle, now how can we use them as resources? So the labeling also makes you change the way you think about it. So great insights there, Joseph. Thank you so much. Sunaina, when you speak to students, are you seeing that sense of anxiety there as well about their opportunities in terms of jobs, career opportunities, how things will pan out for them?
So yes, definitely. In fact, I was in a couple of sessions with college students, and there was a lot of panic being seen there, because the exams were not happening, the entrance tests, we all understand that's getting moved. So but colleges, again, they are doing a lot of stuff around training children, helping them understand that how to convert this, the exact thing that we were just talking about, crisis into an opportunity. There are a lot of skills that they can be learning, but the short answer is yes, there is a bit of panic, but then there are a lot of things that are being strategized to train them, skilling, and keeping them prepared for VUCA world.
I see a lot of students reach out for field internships, which I guess a very nice way of ensuring employability when the right time comes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Coming to you, Jill, there used to be a team environment when we would come to work, right? But right now we are all working at home. We are working at our own pace. There is no team interaction. There is no coffee in the cafeteria. There is no walk. So how do teams keep, or people keep themselves motivated while they are at home, working from home?
Yes, indeed, it's a very important question. I think and I think it really has what's happening now really has turned the volume up on management and leadership and team skills, hasn't it? It's certainly brought that focus to bear there, and it's a big question to kind of answer in this short time, obviously, Sonika. But I agree very much, and we'll extend on from what Joseph and Suk and the others have been saying here. Again, like Joseph, I'd like to put forward a bit of a story, a bit of a case study about a manager that I was working in, who just decided that, as well as absolutely acknowledging all of the uncertainty and his own personal motivation, and risk around that, opened up a debate with his team and talked to them about their motivational triggers, and talked to them about I helped him to use a model of motivation that he opened up in the debate with his team members and his colleagues. And actually, really interestingly, this was mentioned this morning in the keynote by William and Smita as well. So the model he used was self-determination theory, which is a big grand name for what they were talking about this morning. And it's about looking at areas of how can we use autonomy, which is about choice. How can we now think about our own mastery for motivation, which is around learning and building competence in this new, challenging, uncertain world. And then really, really importantly, how can we lock into that sense of purpose? And what he did was he opened the debate and had really great conversations with his teams, obviously using technology. They weren't by the water cooler or the coffee machine, as you say there, but using these three strands as the basis for a great conversation and almost a new emotional contract for the team to agree to work together in the future. So they worked very strongly on the team's sense of purpose. What was the work that they were doing? How did it fit into the purpose of the organization? And then from an individual level, how did each of the individuals tree into that purpose? Where did their motivation come from? Where did they think that they could apply their own contribution and their strength to reach that new sense of purpose that they were talking about? And in the whole area of autonomy, clearly COVID and what's going on at the moment, for all of us, inevitably we feel that there's a degree of control that's been taken away with our lives. So what they talked about together was, how can we be individually autonomous? What is it we want to take that we feel skilled enough to be able to take responsibility for, that gives us freedom back into our world, where we then have a choice? And so he used this as a basic model for a conversation around motivation of the team and motivation at a individual level. And then there were some just really simple things that in my coaching session with him, we talked about that he could discuss further with his team. Simple things like, having a routine, understanding that the day at home, that this is really ground basic, but it really matters. What is your new routine at home? And please, 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 the time that you were using to commute before, that's not work time. That's your bonus time now. What can you use that for? How can perhaps you use that for learning or mastery or building your sense of purpose? Also recognize, we're not all, our cognitive energy is not all married to the 9 to 5 office hours. Some of us are night owls, some of us are morning larks. Where do we feel energized, and when do we feel energized? When do we feel engaged? So it's a great conversation to have around output and goals rather than just working hours. So I think that that the volume being turned up on management and leadership there has enabled managers, the great managers, to have these good conversations and to put some good tips into place and good strategies in place with their people.
So what I hear both you and Joseph say that, today's times really require strong managerial capabilities to be able to manage healthy, motivated, productive teams, right? And that would require some amount of capability building at the managerial level. And that would require some amount of investment. And at the cost of sounding like a broken record, I would like to come back to you, Divya. And I want to ask you, because I am sure that some of the managers and the attendees here might be facing a challenge where budgets are an issue, where they would not have the ability to drive a managerial development agenda for the next 6 months because business recovery right now is a challenge. So how do we manage that at this stage? What can they take away from today's masterclass that can enable them to drive this in their organizations? You're on mute.
Thank you. I think that is indeed a very real challenge for several of us, and there isn't a golden answer to this question, but there are a few tips that I could share, and I would ask the others to jump in and also share anything that they found useful. What I've noticed in any ambiguous situation or in any crisis situation is the more we do with trying to assess the situation and look at what is within our control. So like Jill was talking about a moment ago on where do we have the autonomy? If we don't have the budgets, where can we do things that can be done without a significant budget? How can we still maybe make a significant amount of online learning available through the content providers that we probably would have already had? How can we pick up those and then maybe have cafe-like sessions where we're debriefing some of the content and allowing for engagement with the participants? How could we look at being transparent and maybe having that conversation with our leadership team that, hey, significantly disinvesting in learning is going to have this impact. What are we going to lose as a result of this change? I think these are all some of the things that we could look at in order to best deal with L&D budget cuts. Sonika?
You know, what I've also realized is that when we speak about something a lot, you know, it kind of gets tabled. You know, so let me take a very offbeat example. For example, the polio eradication drive in India or the Swachh Bharat drive in India. I mean, they got beaten to death, but everybody knew about it. Now, if we start talking about these issues in organizations right now, I don't know how much we really acknowledge them. Like Joseph spoke about the fact that these are real issues. Let's acknowledge them. If I, as an individual, am feeling anxious, let me talk about it. If my team is going through work from home burnout, let me talk about it. If I, as an L&D manager, am feeling that my organization needs, my manager needs, my managerial staff or leadership needs to be, you know, trained on empathy or transparency or communication with empathy or whatever. Let me talk about it so much. Even if I do these sessions myself free of cost, it's fine. But at least get this issue out in the open so that it becomes, at least there is sensitization about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, I sometimes feel the sensitization might not be enough. And yes, the trust deficit also might be there. Because, you know, there is so much of fear because of this entire job loss news which is all around, that employees might feel the need to be overproductive, continue to work long hours, continue to show that I am productive, and not really share that they are feeling the burnout.
Yeah, I think really equipping our managers to have those conversations with our employees and, you know, help them actually open up and create a psychologically safe environment where the employee feels comfortable saying, hey, I am feeling burnt out. And then, you know, the manager helping them with different tips and tricks. You know, how do they help them activate their PFC? How do they activate the thinking part of the brain so that they're feeling less anxious? Their limbic system is more under control. How can they help them with, you may be feeling very anxious with having to come to office in this situation, but guess what? You do have some autonomy here. You have autonomy on improving your immune system. You have autonomy. This is what we're doing for you to help you with this. So I think it just makes way for that entire conversation to happen. And I think as L&D professionals, we play an important role in helping our managers have those conversations effectively.
And also building leadership buy-in into the topic.
Yeah,
Yes.
if I could add as well, I actually think I agree with everything you say, and just, you know, adding in, I also think that the science helps in that conversation.
Yeah.
Just what you said there, Divi, about, you know, the immune system. You know, we know from research that, you know, purpose, for instance, you know, having a really deep, emotionally grounded sense of purpose, you know, we know that it makes us biologically more resistant. We know there's research that underpins that. And I found recently the receptivity to some of the science that sits behind these conversations is really high. And it's adding in and driving value into the conversations with managers and leaders, and helping them therefore to buy in, to perhaps having the scary and more transparent, open conversations, because the light's shone on them now as well.
I think
something. Suk, you want to say, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think that Divya, Shri, and Jill have said it really well there. I don't need to add anything further to what they've already said. I think it's been really good.
All right, thanks. Right. So let me step out of organizations a bit and come to Sunaina here and really talk about the community at large. And do you think here that, the entire thing about resilience needs to have a larger narrative with schools, colleges, parents getting involved in this entire conversation, families getting involved in this conversation around resilience, dealing with stress, burnout, and how can we actually, extend this narrative further?
Sure. I think one thing which you brought up is about community, right? So I think community has a huge role to play. In fact, if you look in today's pandemic, what it has taught us is that, there are blurred lines between professional and personal. Offices is in our home, right? So resilience is something which has, and we spoke a lot about it in neuroscience, how our brain develops, and definitely resilience has a place, and we have to bring it into, brain development, into human growth, much before we all enter corporate life, for sure. So for example, if we do a simple activity at this point in time, and I may ask everyone, the listeners, to just think through on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rank yourself on resilience? 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. So if just give a number to your own selves. You can share or you may not share, whatever is great. The numbers have started coming in. And once you have ranked yourself, on the scale, just link it back to your journey in your life. I mean, what is that is bringing you to a high of 8, to a high of 7? I'm seeing those numbers coming in. Just think and look back in your journey of life, that what was that unique thing, what that comes to your mind, that you're rating yourself at that number, whether high or low. And while you all are thinking, I mean, I can be a little magician here of telling that you will all be able to link it, either maybe a physical fitness or physical strength. You may be able to link it because at some point in time there was some kind of a fear which you could, you faced it, you overcame it. Or it could be a brain or mental fitness that you attribute it. Some of you may also be able to attribute to a role model, your family, your parents, your teacher, your cousins. There are a few people who were your role models and you got inspired from them, right? I mean, if there are some other options, please feel free to put it in the chat box. But basically what I'm trying to bring to point is that these are the pillars of resilience. It's not a rocket science. It's something immersive learning, what we have been studying today, reading today in the sessions. When we have a purpose in life, when we are leading a meaningful life, that's where the resilience comes in. And therefore, how schools can contribute to it, I think, or as parents, as teachers, simply we have to ensure that our children, they play sport. We have to ensure that there is a manual work that is being done, whether it's a gardening, it's carpentry, anything. These manual works really help to build that physical strength. In India especially, our children are dependent on us for a long time. We have to make them to earn. They have to get that accountability in. We have to build an empathy. Empathy is a very important factor, in resilience. We have to get, optimism. And above all of us have to become role models because we are being watched. So if we do our things right, children will automatically learn from it. So it's a very simple thing to inculcate it, but probably all it needs is, immersive learning and a little focus.
Yeah, after all, they are the ones who reach corporate sectors in another 10 years anyway. So, okay.